It's great to see you. You ready?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm stoked. Look at this. Where are the kids now?
With the team?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
Everyone is here.
The interns?
Yeah.
What a moment.
Yep.
Right? Can you believe this ride that we're on? Even just last year to this year? Like,
It's been pretty crazy, right?
I mean, it's like surreal returning to the same place and doing the same thing again, but a brand new iteration of it. And
That's
wonder,
true, though.
like,
You were here the last time.
Yeah.
And so many people were like new in the company at that time.
Yes. And now we all feel like so established, but there's all these new faces as well. And even they feel already like just a complete part.
Yeah, like, I mean, I just looked like Aiden feels like he's been around for a while, and then, you know, Randy is getting comfortable as well. So pretty cool.
I'm happy to see it. It's beautiful to see so many different people coming together for a shared vision.
Yeah.
Did you always see it going this way?
No, I don't think I'd imagined like so many different people.
Yeah.
I mean, the vision was the vision, and we had to stay focused on it. And I think I generally do a decent job in just making sure everyone is kind of stays focused, and if we're going off track a little bit, kind of bringing them back. But I was watching the video that you had sent me last night. And that video is just incredible, by the way.
Nice.
We're at 100th of like what Apple's budget is, right? I mean, like literally.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at that. That's not a fake video. Those are
what
real
we're doing.
people.
Exactly.
It's like wherever you kind of, turn the page over, you see so many like faces that are so diverse, right? It's not like we have to go and like look under somewhere to find diversity at US Mobile. It's everywhere.
Yeah. And it's beyond even just diversity of like where you're from. It's also like a lot of people are not telco people here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think we have any people from the telco space. Like, I mean, maybe one or two people over the years.
Yeah.
And they shall remain not named. but no, yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think the common thread is?
I would have said shared vision.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true for any organization that, makes a really great product. I think the way US Mobile is a bit more unique is, I would say, shared love for each other. I think that's what it is at this point.
Yeah.
I think people genuinely like working with each other and like seeing each other, and you can see that.
You can feel it. Yeah, you can feel it.
And I think that's what I would say is like really helping us.
Yeah. What do you think about when, like at the end of a day, when you're riding back home, or even if you're flying home from like a whole gathering, like a whole trip like this, like, is that part of the takeaway? Like that you've fostered this environment?
Yeah.
Is that always what's on your mind when you're not actively working? Like what's culminating inside your brain that this becomes the end product?
Yeah. So listen, I am working all the time, and I'm not saying like physically working, but I'm thinking about this like nonstop, like 24/7.
Yeah.
There's just not a time in the day when I'm not thinking about this. But yeah, it's the people, it's what we have built, it's what we have built in different cities around the world, and how seamlessly we bring them together. These are not like corporate like retreats, but every time we tell people that we're doing it, usually there is a couple of days worth of notice. This was probably a week or two.
Yeah.
And it's just like everyone jumps in. Mm-hmm. This could have been way bigger.
Even with the flight getting canceled night before, 12 hours out, everybody switched their flight immediately.
That was ridiculous. Can you believe that?
I think about another company, like a corporation, this would have been the whole thing would have fell apart.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about that, right? It's like, this is what we fought. It's just, there's 20 of you guys, American Airlines, like, shut the bed and like canceled all of these flights, So like, you American Airlines.
We got here anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks, Blair.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But then it's like, we went on that channel. I said, forget about, just book your next flight. Everyone had done it. And the two people who didn't get it kept on trying for it.
Yeah. And they got here eventually.
And then, well, they got on the same plane because they opened up these flights, right?
Yeah.
2 seats more. And then, I was talking to, Spinelli, and he's like, yeah, dude, like it was kind of unnerving because I couldn't find any flight. And the very next day, I kept on looking again. And then I found a flight 2 hours from, the departure time was literally 2 hours from
that current.
that time.
Yeah.
And I booked it, and it's like, and I'm looking at him and I'm saying, wow, like
People want to be here.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I just wonder, like, how do we get from all the way back there to here? I was looking at that photo that you shared, like in the story that you told about opening up this office. I'm like, what? Before my time, before a lot of people's time.
Yeah.
Has it always been like this?
Yeah. I mean, first, like if you go back to 2019, that's before 90% of the people's time.
Yeah.
FYI.
Yeah.
2019, we had 10 or 12 people in product and engineering and marketing. Like, that's it. Like that's the whole team.
The whole thing.
So we always had a
Yeah.
big support team, like the customer support team. There's like, even that's way bigger. Like we had 60 or 70 people at that time. We've got, close to like over 300 people at this point. But so that's before everyone's time, most of people's time. It was this obsession with creating a product that people love.
An obsession.
100%. Everything when it comes to design and product is obsession. Think about it. I get a new app and it acts a certain way and I get FOMO. Why don't we have this?
Yeah.
Thinking about obsession with treating people nicely. And I always wanted to build businesses that were similar to Nordstrom or Zappos. I would have said Apple, and I think I've kind of changed my. I don't think Apple is necessarily the company I look up to anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the aspect of innovation. I'm talking about the aspect of customer service. I don't think their customer service is where it was back in 2009 or 10 when I bought my first Apple phone and when Steve Jobs was the CEO. And I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day that, she missed her flight because she was, trying to get on a flight, and then United Airlines wanted her to sign this, fill out this new form that doesn't even exist anymore, and she missed her flight. And then this person was really mean to her, even though they're the ones because of who she missed the flight. And we were kind of talking about the fact that just people are just not nice to each other anymore.
Yeah.
And pandemic has really kind of, so you go to a restaurant, you go to, a shop, and someone is extra nice to you, which is really what they're supposed to do in the hospitality industry. And you're like, wow.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And here you have US Mobile, where our lives revolve around treating you really nicely. Can you imagine at our scale, if there's still not a bad interaction that like if someone emails me, I see it on Reddit or Twitter, like I'll respond to it, like internally in the company, like, why did this happen? That keeps everyone in check, right?
Right. Yeah.
But you cannot have the world's best customer experience when you don't treat your people internally nicely and with respect.
That's the foundation that it's built upon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious about your past company. I've only ever heard snippets and things about it, but I feel like it must have been a launch pad or a springboard or at least a foundation to build off of. Are you comfortable diving into that and sharing what that experience was like?
Absolutely.
I'm curious where these beliefs come from.
The beliefs I think I've espoused since I was a child. Great customer experience. I was in 5th or 6th or 7th grade, and I'd be walking back from school, and I'd be envisioning an ad that my company would have and what it like. So I've always been like this. I've always been a builder. I always had ventures when I was younger.
Yeah.
Growing up in Pakistan, in 5th, 6th grade, I would mod chip people's PlayStations.
Yeah.
So they could play all of these bootleg games in Pakistan, because like PlayStation wasn't selling any like original games in Pakistan, and then you couldn't even afford them. So, you know, and so that's always been there. But US Mobile is like a true culmination of a serious problem that I had when I came into the country in 2004, which is I had landed and I had gotten all the way out to the airport, and by this time I was I had been traveling for 30 hours coming from Pakistan, because I had a 10-hour layover in Switzerland. That's just how the cheapest flight was. And so by that time, this is like 25, 30 hours. I haven't called my parents. My parents are really worried. And this is after 9/11. This is like when as a Muslim kid coming into United States, there was a huge stigma. The U.S. administration at that time had some extremely discriminatory immigration policies specifically towards young age Muslim men. Called NCers, so like special registration. Literally, it was as a 20-year-old guy at an Ivy League university, I would have to register coming in and going out of the country just because of where I was from. There was just, this was not random selection. It was all folks from Bangladesh and Muslims from India and Bangladesh and Pakistan and vice versa. So you got that. So that's building up, and I land, and I thought communication in this country would be as simple as me going and buying a SIM card and calling my parents. No. They just wouldn't sell you a SIM card like that.
Yeah. Is that because you had to have credit? Like running a credit check?
The phones wouldn't work here. So I basically called my parents back from, I remember, a payphone. I still remember it was somewhere in Manhattan. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh shit. Like, is this the most advanced country in the world? I literally just decided to invest my youth in this country.
One-way ticket?
Yeah, well, one-way ticket, like education, what am I going to do? Like go back home? No.
Yeah.
Now I have to follow through with it.
Right.
So I always remember that. I think that's where it started from. When I graduated from college in 2009, so I was originally class of 2008. I took a year off to work in the UK, and then eventually graduated to the class of 2009. And when I was graduating, we were a year into the financial crisis. There was no jobs for international students at all. I tell people it's a bad job market, like when Microsoft and Google are not hiring.
Right.
And Microsoft wasn't hiring at that time.
Yeah.
And so, I decided that I was going to do my own venture. And I decided to start my last company, GSM Nation, which was an online retailer for cell phones. So we couldn't launch an actual wireless network operator. I did not have the resources. And by resources, I don't mean the money. Actually, it wasn't even that. It was basically I just did not have the confidence. Everyone kept on saying you need to launch your own wireless network operator. I said, no, I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah.
So I launched an online retailer that powered these network operators, like the prepaid ones, to sell people phones. Because a lot of times in our space, the biggest hook that network operators in this country have is giving you a subsidy over a phone. We'll give you $600 off an iPhone 14, but still charge you like $80 or $90 for a single line. It's so stupid.
In bill
right?
credits, right?
It's just ridiculous. It's just the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah.
But that's the weapon that they still use it.
Yeah.
At that time, it was much bigger. Right. So my company basically powered a lot of these prepaid carriers and helping them sell phones to their users. And so when people would come to our website, we would let them buy a phone, but then we would let them select what network they wanted to be on. So super awesome stuff around that. And send them a SIM card and vice versa.
Nice.
What I realized actually was that prepaid carriers were even worse And like that's where the big opportunity was.
Yeah.
But like my last company did over $100 million in global sales. And definitely was a launch pad for, listen, anything I do in my life,
Yeah.
not just US Mobile.
Right. I mean, we've talked about this, and you mentioned confidence, and I wonder how that fostered over time. Like, what was the key moment or like the string of events that led you from kind of being this aggregator or this marketplace to being like, I am the product now. Like, I have the solution.
I'm not necessarily sure whether there was this turning point. It was always this something that, I remembered. I would have conversations with, different wireless carriers and vice versa. And then sometime in 2014, there was an opportunity that presented itself where we could launch our own wireless network company under a separate company. And I felt like the time was right at that time. So that's when I did it. I'm not sure whether there was that, there's that eureka moment or something. Hey, we're going to do it today. Something that I'd been working on for a couple of years.
Putting it together. And I think like the mental game has to be so strong to last this long. I mean, you said
right.
2014.
And I started working on reaching out to carriers in 2012.
It's been over 10 years of this particular journey.
And just between the time that I reached out to people and trying to get my own service up and running to when we actually had the deal was 2 years.
Mm.
Like sometimes that's how long it takes to
start.
Yeah, absolutely.
To start.
Yeah. And so in that way, obviously I have the benefit of the history. I have the benefit of having waited for stuff like that's something that I tell everyone at US Mobile. Just sometimes you just got to be patient around these things, and and obviously I've seen a lot of stuff for the last decade or so.
How do you balance patience with fast action? Like that's one of the traits I admire a lot about you is your willingness to just cut something off or rearrange something in an instant. Like you look at an issue and it's just solved like that. But at the same time, you're talking all about patience and how it takes 2 years to accomplish just starting something.
Yeah.
Like how do you manage?
I think my parent mode kicks in.
Yeah.
Where like a lot of times I look at someone, I'd be like, I know what's best for you and this is not it. Mm-hmm. The way I would preach patience today at US Mobile, but at the same time, like moving really fast is, patience is stick around and we'll be one of the biggest wireless network operators in the next 3 years. Mm-hmm. That's the patience part.
Right.
There's no feature that you can launch. There's no product that you can launch that's going to 10x our user base overnight. That's just not going to happen. Yeah. So that's where patience comes in, which is you gotta wait to see this out. And then kind of moving over towards, fast is, but whatever we're building, we gotta get that out to our current users fast enough because our current users are our biggest evangelists.
Yeah. Right.
So
they're the ones bringing people in. We were just having this conversation this morning about the Renew Referral Reward Center. And it's like, we value these people so much. I mean, you could talk probably for hours about how it's like for a person marketing team, 30 plus something product team. It's like the people carry it. We make the product for them and they carry it and they do the rest with it.
That's right.
Like they make the kind of the magic come to life.
Yeah. And we ask them, and you're right. Like, look at how like it took us 6 months to revamp our referral program. We put one of our best PMs on it, right? And something really beautiful has come out of it.
Yeah,
and create a viral loop around it. So I think that's where the patience part comes in. It's like, okay, now we have built it. Now we got to get it in front of our users, and we got to be patient doing that. Yeah, and I think the definition of patience is changing as well.
As technology changes, or as
I think as no, I'm in the context of US Mobile.
Yeah,
in the context of Ahmed and US Mobile, where patience means something entirely different today for us. It's like, okay, be fast in building stuff, but be patient in getting users on top of it, and vice versa. And I would say more than patience, perseverance is the thing that trumps everything. Yeah. I was patient enough for 2 years, but more importantly, I would have lost that patience had I not had a very perseverance kind of, like, it's something that's like ingrained in me, which is if I'm after something, I'm going to get it. Like 100% going to get it. Like this, nothing is going to stop me from delivering that.
Yeah.
Time and again, I commit to something, whether in terms of growing our teams or bringing, new opportunities on the table, I always deliver on it. And I think that's the thing, which is something that I think everyone could use a little bit more of, which is you got to keep on trying.
What can we gather from it? Someone maybe who walks in the door on day one, or even if a customer is someone who cares a lot about US Mobile's watching this, like, how could you let us into what perseverance means to you?
I mean, everything about me, right? I mean, it's when I graduated from college, I had a year to figure out what my visa was going to look like. So even though my company had done millions of dollars in revenue, I was going to be kicked out of this country. So like I figured that part out. After that, I built a business from scratch, got customers in 90 countries, deal with different regulators around the world, all the while competing in a free economy that the US is. And then even I was building US Mobile, I remember I'd reached out to, some folks over at T-Mobile, and I hadn't gotten a response for a couple of days. So then I reached out to, pretty senior guy at the time on LinkedIn. And I remember he hadn't responded to my message. On the third day, like, every night I'd be just like lying down on the bed at 12 in the night, staring at the ceiling, just waiting for that person to respond. And I remember my wife looked at me and she was like, don't worry about it. He's going to respond. You've got a very good story.
Yeah.
And that person responded. There's another 150 occasions like that when people have responded to me. I don't stare at ceilings anymore. Like, thankfully, I'm at a point in my life where I don't have to do that anymore. We have actually enough credibility where people reach out to us as opposed to me reaching out to them. But it's time and again I've seen that.
I mean, one thing I've learned a lot from you is like to make action speak up. Simply put yourself in front of the opportunity, or see it and act on it immediately. But I like that there's also this contrast of like manifestation, like laying down and thinking about it, like almost using some. How spiritual are you? Do you include spirituality into your
I am
practice?
I am spiritual enough. I definitely believe in it a lot. And so that's why I sometimes tell people some of your best work comes when you're not working.
Yeah.
It's definitely the same thing for me, driving to work or being in the train or just on a Saturday, Sunday, just sitting alone with my thoughts. We had a friend of ours, and a couple of years back, we were at her house, and she took away the son's phone and iPad, and the son was like, kind of getting into in the teenage years, and so he's flipping out. Why do you take one? You know what happens to kids when you take devices away from them.
I've been there.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like they just absolutely flip out. So he's flipping out. And she's like, I don't care. Go. And he's like, what do you want me to do? And she's like, go be alone with your thoughts. And this is like 6 or 7 years back. And at the time, I'm like, what a weird thing to say. Be alone with your thoughts. And now to think about it, it's the biggest lesson, one of the biggest lessons I've had in my life. The value of being alone with your thoughts. It's so important in life. And I think I've really manifested that, and I really leverage it in my life. Tell my kids to do it as well.
Nice.
Sometimes you just got to be like, just got to stop the world's different marketeers and, designers and all of that, like put stuff in your brain by watching, something on Facebook or Twitter or TV, people selling you stuff and just be like, just shut everything down and just sit and think about in your mind, what you're about, what and that is one thing. I can pretty much like make a 3D diagram of anything I want in my mind when I'm sitting alone, and then I'm able to express that in writing. And I think that helps a lot.
Is that the language that you go to first? You go to the written word?
I would say more imaginary work. So over the years, some of our best work has come in when I found a designer at US Mobile that just is absolutely on the same page as I am. I say something and they actually put it in pictures, and then just beautiful stuff happens.
Yeah, like finding that common ground.
Yeah. So it's definitely something.
What sparks your imagination? What created this inventive nature in you? Was it something you saw as a kid?
I think I did. I think it was my dad. Actually everyone around me. Like I was into Legos really early in my life, like in first grade. I loved to take stuff apart and I love to build it back on. So I think it's kind of started from there. My parents always like encouraged it. My dad tells me that when I was 3 years old, I somehow, so my dad would be working on his cars all the time. So he'd be under them. Mm-hmm. So I had these Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
Right? I wedged them in like something like under a cupboard or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or under a table, not a cupboard. I'd wedge them and then I'd go under the table and then I'd actually pretend to work under them as well. And then once, like when I was 3.5 years old, I somehow got hold of a hammer and a nail and I hammered it and then I hammered it into my dad's door.
Like his car door?
Yeah. And went back to him and said, hey, I fixed the car.
Sick mod.
And my dad was like, yeah, that's some good work. And I think that's where when I tell people, go and break stuff and don't be scared of it. I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
I just think people are too defensive in life. And I don't know why that is.
I don't know, but when something's so close to you, sometimes you feel like if there's any kind of criticism toward it, it's like a stain on your name or something.
I was telling you about one of my friends, right, who is a pretty successful entrepreneur yesterday, right?
Yeah.
How he, if I say something dumb to him, he'll come back to me and say, Ahmed, that's really dumb, right? I don't know how to describe it in English, but whatever this is the biggest barrier towards anyone not succeeding in life. Hands down. Not being able to take criticism. Talk to anyone who is very successful in life. They'll tell you about people who have pushed them. Some of them have done it in a mean way. Some of them have done it in a nice way. But the reality is it's people who've been open to criticism. Like, I just don't understand why people are not ready to take criticism in their life.
Yeah.
I
feel like you're training us in that.
Well,
in
sure.
your leadership style. I feel like it doesn't even need to be a preface of like, my experience at US Mobile has been that there's never needed to be a preface that like, with all due respect or, no offense, but it's always like, it's just facts. It's just facts, it's thoughts, it's feedback, it's opinions, and it just goes to work immediately.
Yeah, and look back at where, and I'm not saying you specifically, but like in general, on where someone is today at US Mobile and where they were 2 years back in terms of what they're able to achieve and do and how they're able to think and the confidence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about how you walked into US Mobile and like now, whatever else you do in your life at some point, right?
Yeah.
It's like your confidence and like you'd walk into an organization, you'd be like, it's like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but we can do it and we can cut all the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I definitely do push people to their imaginatory limits, which is, you build something, it could have been way better. Did you think about this? Did you think about that? Like, I mean, we had a conversation 6 weeks back about some of the videos you were making. And we spent an hour talking about that. The video that you just made yesterday that hopefully everyone is going to see, it's your best work yet. Perhaps having spent the least amount of time on it.
That's the key, right? Sometimes it just clicks. I don't know. Like you break past that barrier of inhibition and you unlock a world of imagination.
Yeah. And you know, someone very clever once told me, you change anything by 30, 40%, it becomes original. So there's so much inspiration outside.
Yeah. There sure is.
You know, not everything has to be 100%. Actually, nothing is 100% original. If they're saying it, they're lying.
I mean, yeah. Even think about language. Like anything you say, I mean, these words have been put together in a slightly different order. Everything, it's culture, you know, like that's how culture disseminates. And with such a flat global culture at this point, because of the products that we're working with, people are more interconnected than ever. We can all get on a common ground. So there's, like you said, there's ample inspiration to pull from to create something better than the last one.
Absolutely.
Do you think there's still originality though? Like with that being said, like we've moved toward so many new companies being focused on digital, things that exist within the confines of your iPhone, or things that exist within pre-established ecosystems. Like, is originality still available to us as we move forward?
I think the word is overrated. I don't know who created it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, what does originality mean? And I mean, if it has anything to do with the origins, then like, listen, we've been around for a couple of thousand years at this point, right? There's an entrepreneur like Ahmed that existed 2,000 years back. There'll be one that's going to be a lot worse than him and a lot better than him 2,000 years later. Every time I read about people biographies of people, I'm like, oh wait, like, yeah, I did this as well, and he did this. Like, it's like, I would say perhaps what's really available to us in abundance is individualism. You know,
yes,
which is, and I think that's what. That I think US Mobile is really great at it, and I think that's what. But I think that's what the focus should be.
It's something perfectly unique to the individual. I love that what we're creating is something that no matter who you are, it can benefit you in a different way.
Absolutely.
Whether it was like the 3x3x3, hundreds of custom plans, or whether it's all these new iterations that we brought to the table. That
putting an avatar in that you want, a color scheme.
That's like you, right?
Yeah.
It's you. It's unique.
Yeah.
It's 100% you. How do you see that moving forward? Like, how do we bring more power to the individual?
Keep on listening to them. It's, it's, everyone says, listen more, talk less. And it's just like, it's something that we should still just kind of, we need to do a lot more of it, like listen more to our customers. And so what comes next is depends on how, needs are evolving and what our customers want. And we're just going to keep on building that.
Keep on building. That's fantastic. And so when we fly back home from this trip, what are you going to be thinking about? What are the takeaways? Every time we do this, like, what's that evolution? How does that get us closer to that goal?
I think the feeling of meeting these people that we love and admire and cherish is not getting old, and I love that. It's like if you look at New York office flying into Toronto office, and they're meeting each other, and they're meeting each other as if they're each other's best friends, and they've been around each other for a while because they. So I think that doesn't get old for me.
Yeah,
I absolutely love it. I miss it dearly. I wish we could do it more often. This one is interesting. It's mid-year, so I think a really good kind of middle point around, things that we need to be achieving and doing. So there's a lot of takeaways in terms of where we should be focused for the next 6 months, and I think that's where it is. As an individual, I only focus on one or two really big things that move the needle for the company. My last quarter's goal was to renew our carrier deals, and we've done it in a spectacular way. And it's going to, that's going to make a huge difference for us for the rest of the year. So I'm pretty happy that, I'm going to put that behind me and and then kind of focus on delivering some of the products that we have, that we have committed to. I'm obviously, as a CEO, like my job is to be like over optimistic. So like sometimes a lot of my timelines tend to be pretty optimistic as well. But it is what it is. If I don't aim for something that high or big, then we'll never land where we do.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of kind of takeaways in terms of how we should do the rest of the year. And listen, in a couple of months, 4 or 5 months, we'll all be flying somewhere for our annual, and then we look back and we're like, we have no idea where the last year went. Like, you joined us summer of last year.
Yeah, like spring, March. It's been like a year and a half.
That's ridiculous.
Right?
Yeah, it's like by the end of the year, you'll be like, well, I've been around for like
2 years.
Yeah.
How's it happen?
Yeah, I mean,
How's
it's
it
just,
happen?
yeah.
Yeah. It flies. But feels like as the time goes on, it's like you can just be more and more proud of what you've created.
I hope so. Like, listen, I think we got to keep our feet on the ground and make sure that we keep on doing stuff that we can be proud of.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very proud of what what we have built together. We see that on the faces of people, how happy they are, and my priority is to just, to get us somewhere where a lot of people's dreams come true, or at least the immediate dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I think people's aims have changed as well over the years as they worked in this company, and be like, okay, this is where I think I'd get to. There's a new...
It gets bigger,
right?
With time.
Yeah, but it's a couple of really important years for US Mobile.
Yeah.
And my dream will be fulfilled when I get to a point where I see around me and I look at people and I know that we have created like a safety net for everyone for the rest of their lives. That's just such a huge focus for me. I just want to make sure that we get there. Sometimes people get in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to remind them that this is like, listen, if we were going to get here, this is how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
So it'll be a big weight lifted off my shoulder. It's not going to go away for the next couple of years. I know that, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with doing that. But as it's one of those things that's a big priority for me.
Yeah. Does it end after the IPO, or where does it go from here?
Good question. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think, IPO, like in 2025, I think is, get there. And I think once we get there, going public is just one of the options. It's something that seems like the most feasible, but things can change. It gets there, and then we figure out what we're going to do after that. Right? Like, IPO itself is a commitment. It's a commitment from all of us to put more time into this company. Mm-hmm. But it definitely is. It's a goal for us.
Yeah. I guess beyond that frontier, we'll just have to wait and see what comes next.
Yeah. Maybe someone will be, maybe like a younger Anthony will be interviewing a older, Anthony at IPO, and then you'd be telling your story on how you got here.
Yeah.
That
would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.